But actually, I think in the context of Mariupol, that's less likely because the Ukrainian forces are confined to this very large steelworks. They still have some ammunition and food and fuel left, so some fight in them yet. But the Russians would more than tarnish what they're going to herald as this symbolic strategic victory of seizing Mariupol and creating the land bridge to Russia. And if they use chemical weapons now in these circumstances, then the consequences they know will far outweigh the value of closing down the last vestiges of resistance in Mariupol.
A standoff in Mariupol continues. Russia overnight issued what they call a final surrender or die ultimatum to the remaining Ukrainian defenders there, but they are showing little sign of surrender. Mariupol, of course, has seen the worst humanitarian crisis of the war so far, some of the fiercest fighting, and there are fears that it could get worse. British Defence Intelligence reports again this morning that Russian forces are refocusing on the east, and the city of Mariupol, the second largest in the Donetsk Oblast, is a key target for Russia if they want to take the whole of the Donbas. It would also be the first major city to fall to Russia. So what could happen? What kind of a battle are we unfortunately building towards? Live on Times Radio Breakfast, General Sir Richard Barrons, formerly the head of the UK's Joint Forces Command. Good morning.
Good morning.
So first of all, Mariupol, such a prize for Russia, as I outlined there. Why has this prize eluded them for so long?
Well, it has been a very difficult battle. So Mariupol is a city of just under 500,000 people, so large, and the Ukrainians have defended it extremely robustly, and this is why the fight has taken almost a month, I think. So what has proven again is how hard it is to take a city which is well defended, even when you are quite committed as an attacking force.
And in terms of the battle that will follow, not just in Mariupol, but around the east of the country as well, you write in the Sunday Times today that tanks and how well the Russians use them will be the determining factor. Why do you come to that conclusion?
So we're about to see the battle for the Donbas unfold, and it'll unfold from three directions. First of all, from the east, from the separatist-held areas, onto the Ukrainian positions, which have been defended now for more than 8 years. So they're very well defended, well constructed Ukrainian defensive positions. So taking them head on will be hard, and then the Russians will try to get behind them, encircle them coming from both the north and the south, and coming from the south includes coming from Mariupol, which is one of the key cities of the Donbas. And this fight will unlock a great deal of Russian firepower, so aircraft, missiles and artillery. But in order to cover this area, which is about the size of Switzerland, I guess, they will need to move their armoured forces, so tanks, infantry and armoured vehicles and supporting armoured artillery. And what we saw around Kyiv was these forces being confined to roads, and they were very easily and very well picked off by the Ukrainian defence, often using the missiles that NATO countries like the UK had provided. What they'll try and do in the Donbas, where the ground is potentially more open, is manoeuvre this armour off the road so that you can use the full weight of it to try and overwhelm the Ukrainian defence. And there are two things that are against them there. One is the weather, which can make that hard. And the other is Russians have just not proven capable yet of assembling a large force and then concentrating it. They're still feeding in units piecemeal.
And you say that you refer to what's happened in the past. Of course, that has also included desertions, has included the death of generals, has included large convoys of tanks just being picked off by Ukrainian drones and anti-tank missiles. Thinking about all of that that has played out in the past, you'd forgive someone listening for thinking that the Russians haven't got a hope in hell of taking all of Donbass.
So there are a couple of reasons why we should qualify that thought, attractive though it is. The first is the Russians have recognized how they failed in the opening phases of this war when they tried to do too much at once. And now they're concentrating on trying to do one thing so that they can focus their firepower, their forces, their air power, their logistics and their leadership. And this battle is now under the control of a single general rather than the three that were sharing the war between them to start with. And they've given themselves a little bit more time to plan, to brief their soldiers, to organize, to line up stockpiles of fuel and ammunition. And all of that would suggest this could be harder. On the other hand, they have had an enormous battering. They've lost maybe 30 of the battalion task groups that they hold. They hold about 120 tops. So that's an enormous loss. They haven't had much time to refit them. A lot of the soldiers have had a very poor experience at the hands of the Ukrainian military, and they must wonder whether they're just not going to get another mauling. So this is very finely balanced, but we want to be a bit cautious.
And of course, before we get to that point, there's a question of what happens within Mariupol itself. I mentioned that surrender or die ultimatum, which has been put to the Ukrainian defenders there. Richard Spencer, our correspondent in Mykolaiv, sort of cast doubt on this, but some people are concerned that chemical weapons might be one way that the Russians actually make some progress in Mariupol and get some of the Ukrainian defenders there out of some of the industrial tunnels and the rest that they're currently based in.
So theoretically, doctrinally possible for the Russians to use non-persistent chemical weapons when they get stuck like this. But actually, I think in the context of Mariupol, that's less likely because the Ukrainian forces are confined to this very large steelworks. They still have some ammunition and food and fuel left, so some fight in them yet. But the Russians would more than tarnish what they're going to herald as this symbolic strategic victory of seizing Mariupol and creating the land bridge to Russia. And if they use chemical weapons now in these circumstances, then the consequences they know will far outweigh the value of closing down the last vestiges of resistance in Mariupol.
And just finally, I wonder what lessons we in the UK should draw from all of this, because of course, it's been commented many times in the past how we're cutting back on things like tanks. Boris Johnson in November last year told the liaison committee of the House of Commons that we have to recognise that the old concepts of fighting big tank battles on European landmass are now over. Do we need a big rethink about what equipment and capability we have?
So we're going to have a big rethink about defence and security for two reasons. The first reason is we now know the Russia that we're dealing with, and that trajectory of hollowing out NATO's armed forces since the end of the Cold War, because we thought that Russia wouldn't be a military threat, is now clearly being literally blown away. So all NATO countries are going to have to resurrect their ability to deter Russian forces, conventional and nuclear, and that will mean putting more effort back into mainland Europe, and you can see NATO talking about that. And the second thing is, well, technology clearly has moved on since 1990, and the armed forces that we need will ride the wave of the digital age. So armies, navies and air forces will be a manned, unmanned and autonomous mix. There'll be tremendous emphasis on precision and the use of data, things like that. But people still have to fight and move on a battlefield. So there'll still be armoured vehicles. It's just that they will be made differently and have different weapons and sensors on them. But what we call tank battles that we considered during the Cold War will feature again, but it'll be different technology.
General Sir Richard Barrons, thanks for your time.
Thank you.